Okay, Eraserhead. If you're a fan of David Lynch, you might have seen, or at least heard of, two things at a minimum: Twin Peaks and Eraserhead. These two creations launched him to the top of his own eccentric mountain-ass genre of art, now called Lynchian. Our dear sweet boy David created his own genre of film. Sure, surreal filmmaking didn't exactly start with him, but he transcended and popularized it, and it all started with Eraserhead. Long story short, a quirky, coffee-guzzling artist known as David Lynch cut his teeth as a painter, went to art school, traveled, painted in a studio, and developed the idea to make moving paintings, which at the time were called movies. He made some short films, Six Men Getting Sick, The Alphabet, The Grandmother, all of which solidify that he never once second-guessed his own brand of filmmaking. There were no quirky character comedies or gangster films tucked in Lynch's early days. It was beguiling and bewildering from the get-go. These short films led to a grant from the American Film Institute, and essentially, Lynch was given carte blanche by the AFI to make his first feature film. He used the stables at the Institute for locations, lived in those stables for 5 years, made Jack Nance grow his hair into Marge Simpson hair, and through pain and suffering, he created Eraserhead. It is said that the film's premise came to Lynch in a dream, the dream of a man's head being taken to a pencil factory by a small boy, which sounds about right. I think the thing with D. Lynch that is so fascinating to so many people is that he had a fairly average upbringing. He grew up in that same DC outskirts suburbia that Dave Grohl grew up in. I only make that comparison because it's like a tale as old as time to be a creative mind waiting around in a white picket fence type world. And when you break free, you make something amazing. Dave Grohl, Kurt Cobain, Kanye West. I mean, some people do different things with their pent-up creativity, but I'm not here to judge. Davey Lynchy is another example of that same formula. But what's so extra fascinating about him is that he has one of the more fucked up creative minds around, at least visually and thematically, but he's a normal person. He doesn't dress strangely unless you count wearing the same button down for 40 years strange. He doesn't really seem to have any kind of fervent ego or Francis Bacon type drug, sex, party problem. He just smokes cigarettes and talks about his dreams. So, especially in 1978, something as surreal and bizarre coming from the mind of someone who looks like he's been sitting around at home for the milkman so he could eat his rice checks was curiosity-inducing, to say the least. And that's just the personality around the film. The film itself. The film itself. I don't really want to do like a deep analysis type thing, and I definitely don't want to do speculation or pondering of why David Lynch put a lady in the radiator. It symbolizes fertility, like eggs being hot. That's for the birds, pardon my French. You can type in David Lynch on YouTube and get hundreds of explained or the meaning behind videos that will scratch that itch if that's what you're into. For me, his movies are enough. My brain just gets bored with deep dive analysis type things. When I watch Eraserhead, I could give two halves of a whole fuck melon what the opening sequence means. I'm just enamored by the visuals, frankly. The sound design, the practical effects. The intro is for sure a sex scene though, like, that goes without saying. It's one of the top tier, watch it to fall asleep weird movies. Personally, I like to take a big fucking fat shot of NyQuil and put it on while my brain slowly sinks into the basement. It's a trip. Plot. Jack Nance plays Eraserhead, a bumbling but earnest working man who accidentally impregnates his wife. The baby is born with a horrible deformity, and Eraserhead is left to take care of it when the mother leaves out of exhaustion and just like being overwhelmed with having to look after a mutant worm baby. This is the plot. It doesn't really go anywhere near to doing it justice, though. The plot is like a poodle skirt wrapped around a sentient ball of cosmic slugs. The skirt is there. It is there. But you're going to be looking at the slugs more, I bet. Like my last David Lynch review, Inland Empire, the plot is a backdrop for all the other fun things, mainly pacing, acting, and sound design. I'll talk about those three things right now. A David Lynch movie without David Lynch pacing would be not a David Lynch movie. The pacing is so important. And I could bring up Silent Hill like always, but I won't. I won't bring up how slow, disjointed dialogue and low, often too slow sequences creates a sense of otherworldly dread, like you're watching some kind of alien stage play that knows more than you do about what we're doing in this fucking ridiculous universe. Moving so forlornly that it starts to make you uncomfortable, but just for the exact right amount of time so it doesn't turn into frustration. That's when things start happening again. Then, when you've had your fit of eccentric, seemingly nonsensical dialogue, it goes back to the slow, ambient, drawn-out pacing. It's a perfect blend of the two, and it's the same way Twin Peaks and all of his other work play out. It's as distinct a Lynchian move as his coffee and cigarettes. Soulless, uninspired hacks who try desperately to pay homage to Lynch, such as myself, might get the visuals down, but will never come close to achieving that patented pacing. And even with Lynch's direction and amazing editing and cinematography, that pacing would not be possible without acting. Big D Lynch has one of the greatest eyes for actors around, and they seem to have a great rapport with nothing but wonderful things to say about Lynch and his tough but fair direction style. Jack Nance plays Eraserhead with all the little nuances in his face that make him a hapless but hopeful single father who has just taken things as they come. Laurel Neer as the lady in the radiator does this bashful sweetness thing, which is fucking crazy because she looks like John Adams. Charlotte Stewart nails postpartum depression about as well as Carla did in that one episode of Scrubs about postpartum depression. That was a good episode. The teeth clicking scene is great because it's wonderfully relatable, but it's haunting. It's like, we've all been annoyed by bedmates tossing in their sleep, but Jack Eraser Nance is such a sweetie pie who is just getting irritated, but it's the middle of the fucking night. His sweetness is battling his irritation. That's real life stuff, but it's all drowned in that classic Lynchian pool of, oh God, there's dream beetles eating my eyes. There isn't a big cast here, and it was a low budget first feature film, but Lynchpin nailed it, as well as whoever helped him with casting. There's no casting director listed. Again, it's the first feature, so everybody on set was probably doing everything. Even going on further, Lynch always had a hunch on who should play what role, even in the instance of Bob in Twin Peaks, going as far as creating that character because he saw something in the set dresser who accidentally stumbled into a shot. His eye for actors is sharp. But now, let's talk about his ears. We're going to talk about. With this segment, I would like to tell you a personal story. Last spring, I took a class on transcendental meditation, a practice that David Lynch has been performing twice a day since 1973. I took the class because I read his book, Catching the Big Fish, where he goes into detail about how meditation helped his life and his creativity. And, well, who couldn't use help with life and creativity? I did it twice a day for several weeks until I fell off from doing it because I don't have that patented baby boomer discipline. But it helped me in a few ways, mainly realizing the importance of staying present-minded, and especially when you're an anxiety-ridden millennial such as myself, how achieving a present mind feels like a euphoric rush. And that brings me to my favorite sequence in Eraserhead, and why I appreciate it more now after having learned about transcendental meditation. The entire film, the sound design is, to say the least, the very least, grating. There's always some industrial noises, moaning, crying, screaming, throwing up, oozing, squelching, laughing, but there's just always some off-putting audio going on. But about halfway in the film, when Eraserhead wakes up and is greeted by his beautiful neighbor, all of that noise just stops. There's no grating sound, nothing. Almost complete silence, but enough noise to know that it's not muted. That moment always washes me over with this feeling of brief euphoria. And it really feels like the rush you get when your brain shuts the fuck up for a minute after meditating. I don't know if our boy Drizzy Lynchkins did that on purpose, or if, like most things in his work, just a sum of the parts that makes his mind what it is. but it's my favorite moment, and I've never met anyone who's had quite the same feeling. So let me know if you felt that, or noticed it, or anything like that. But the sound design typically is uncomfortable. It's ambient, droning, no real music other than that classic "In Heaven Everything Is Fine" sung by the sweet, dear sweet lady in the radiator. It's enclosing, it's surreal, and it's world building. His sound design is world building rather than just being a score. It's a soundtrack to the film the same way that drilling noises is a soundtrack to your root canal, but in a good way, but also in a grating way, in a purposeful way. And once again, I would have every right to bring up Silent Hill and its similar process of using harsh, industrial noises to fill your feet with that deep dread, that baked dread, but I won't, because this is not a Silent Hill review. It's an Eraserhead review. It's not even a review, really. It's just praise. I mean, I don't know. I hate the word review because it feels reductive to things. Like, who the fuck am I to review Eraserhead? It's a movie that's been around for 45 years. It was Stanley Kubrick's favorite film, but because I have a Google account and subsequently a YouTube channel, I feel like I need to toss my opinion of "it's great" in the ring. Well, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And I might not even have anything new to add. Truly, I just enjoy David Lynch and his movies, and I think they're worth talking about. He has that magnetism and mystique that makes people want to be near him, even if it's just digitally with his daily weather reports. His methods are addictive, and Eraserhead is without a doubt my favorite Uncle Drip Lynch Boy film, and one of my favorite films of all time. Like I keep saying, I have no real interest in dissecting the themes or the meanings. There are people out there who already do that. I'm not saying it's not worth discussing to a certain extent, but it's just not my jam. I'm a visual bro, and I'm a sound bro. I like the way things look, feel, sound, the way people talk to each other, and how that makes you feel, or how it paces out. Maybe that makes me a Philistine, but that's fine. I just like to drink bottles of NyQuil and watch weird shit, and you do too. So if you have yet to see Eraserhead, get in your used Toyota Avalon, drive to the nearest Eckerd's, the same section of the store where you get your anti-anxiety meds, and purchase a 3-pack of off-brand NyQuil. It's the same ingredients. Don't even touch the NyQuil. I'm telling you right now, they have the same amount of doxylamine. Drink a responsible amount because you've been feeling under the weather this week. Put this movie on, watch it, and sink into the catacombs of your fucked up little brain. And then wake up the next day and go pay $800 to sit in a Marriott in Concord, North Carolina, and meditate with some guy who will never even attempt to talk to you again. You will have to take your shoes off. Thanks for checking this video out. If you were wondering, I do make weird little films and videos on this channel, Modern Minkus, so feel free to go check those out if you're interested. But if you're wondering where I'm sitting right now, no, it's not a Blockbuster, because I'll be goddamned if I'm driving all the way to Bend, Oregon. No, actually, I'm sitting in VisArt Video, one of the last video rental stores in the world. This place is really a video library that is currently branching out into doing more because, in all honesty, your 25th re-rental of Alice in Wonderland, an X-rated musical fantasy, is much appreciated, and it is a good movie. But it's also not keeping the lights on. One of the things VisArt is doing to promote the preservation of physical media is movie reviews and discussions on its YouTube channel, which I happen to run. So if you did like this video, I'd of course love and appreciate a like and subscribe over here, because it really fluffs up my ego something nice. But go ahead and swing over to VisArt's YouTube channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and segments just like this. Okay, I am technically still on the clock here, so I'm gonna go mop the bathrooms. I'll see you next time.